Everybody to a Parent Academy. We have a very esteemed panel with us here tonight. And I appreciate the parents logging on. I know it's beautiful outside, so we have big competition. This will be recorded, so if you happen to step out and you don't finish watching it, you can see it on our website. It'll be posted. So please feel free to do that. We also have translation for people. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you might see a little globe. That's the translation tab. We have Cantonese. It'll say Chinese for Cantonese. We also have Mandarin. That will be under Korean. Sorry, there's only so many choices that we have. We have Portuguese and Spanish as well. So I appreciate the interpreters that are here with us tonight. They do a fabulous job. We also are doing this presentation in a webinar format, so we are able to take questions in the chat feature. So throughout the presentation, feel free to pull up the chat feature and post your questions there, and the panelists will be happy to answer your questions. I'd like to just introduce the panelists if I could quickly. We have Lisa Barron. She is the director for the Center of Trauma Care in Schools with the Alliance for Inclusion and Prevention. We have Sarah Perlman. She's an on-site coordinator for Select Schools and for the Alliance for Inclusion and Prevention. We have Stephanie Jones. Stephanie, are you also with the Alliance?
I am at the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Hannah Broderick is a research assistant with ESA Lab, Harvard Graduate School of Education, and Bob Kilkenny, Alliance for Inclusion and Prevention. So I just want to say that this team here has something really, really special for us, for Quincy Public Schools. We are so grateful to have them on board with us, to be able to support our teachers in the classroom, to have a therapeutic and positive response, with children, to promote pro-social skills. And it's very accessible for our teachers. It's a great resource. We are so, so happy to partner. And I will turn it over to Lisa, who will explain the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maura. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the parents and caregivers and members of the Quincy Public School community. We're really so pleased to be here today to speak with you about our exciting program called Select Schools that we'll be implementing in the elementary schools beginning in the fall. So this is our agenda for the evening. You already know who we are. So the next thing that we'll do is I will give you a brief overview of what Select Schools is all about. And then we will talk about the kernels, and we'll probably spend most of the hour on that. We'll turn that over to our Harvard ESOL partners to describe that. And then lastly, I will speak briefly about how we plan to evaluate the effectiveness of the Select Schools program. And then finally, we'll take about 15 minutes at the end to answer any questions you might have as we're going through the presentation. So we're going to monitor the chat and try to answer those brief questions that don't require a lot of explanation, but we'll also copy some questions that we want to highlight and speak more about in detail at the end. So we've done our welcome and introductions. So these are the partners of Select Schools. This is us, the Alliance for Inclusion and Prevention Center for Trauma Care in Schools, and we are the leaders of this program, and we're here along with our partners, the ESOL Lab at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and the American Institutes for Research, which is AIR. So now you have an AIP and an AIR. So this is our overview for the evening. So first of all, let me just tell you why we decided to create Select Schools. Why are we here? So like everyone here, we care very deeply about academic achievement for all students. And we know that students do better when they're functioning well socially and emotionally. So our program is about supporting students' social and emotional skill development so they can be successful in school. And to do this, we have a two-pronged approach. We have two components. The first one is we are going to enhance a trauma-sensitive school environment at your child's school. So what do we actually mean by a trauma-sensitive school? This really means that it's a learning environment that's warm and welcoming for all students. It means being responsive to the needs of all students. And because the word trauma is in there, we want to just reinforce the fact that we will not be doing trauma treatment with children, but rather the trauma sensitive school component that will be done with our partner AIR, who will be working just with the teachers and the staff, not directly with the students, to help them provide an optimal environment for student learning. And then the second component of the program is to integrate trauma-informed social and emotional learning activities, which we call kernels, into this trauma-sensitive school environment. And our partners at the Harvard ESA Lab will be talking about that in just a moment. But first, I'm going to turn it over to my AIP colleague, Sarah Perlman, just to ask you this preliminary question.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So we thought we would take just a brief pause and get to hear from all of you, the parents, the caregivers, the guardians, get you involved a little bit, and we would love to hear from you. When we think about schools and the children, what social and personal skills are important? What are important to you? And we would love to hear this. And when you come up with an answer, to please type your answers in the chat, and I'll have the opportunity to read some of these out for everyone. So you can just take a moment and again think about what social and personal skills are important to you. The ability to make friends. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks for leading us off, Kate. Anybody
Yeah.
else have some ideas?
Confidence to interact with others. Absolutely. Peer pressure and competition.
Anything else come to mind?
Marketable skills. Thank you, Kelly. Communication. Absolutely. A lot of these pro-social skills and building a strong sense of self, identity. Anything else? Respect. Wonderful. And as you continue to think about it, please feel free to put more into the chat. But I'm really seeing a lot of that personal identity, communication, relationship building, and a lot of the skills that you've pointed out and mentioned. These are skills that the Select Schools program is actually going to plan to reinforce and foster in the students. And a lot of that work will be done through the SEL kernels. And oh, confidence, I love that. Yes. And so we're actually going to hear a little bit more about what SEL kernels are, what they entail, and how they address a lot of these skills that you're noting. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Jones to go more into detail about the SEL kernels.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us. My name is Stephanie Jones, and I am a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and I run a lab called the EASL Lab, and we are very lucky to be partnering with AIP on this project. And I'm excited to introduce you to the kernels. And generally, like overall, the kernels are simple, flexible tools that are designed to address some of these common social and emotional learning challenges. And you just highlighted a whole bunch of social and emotional skills and competencies that the kernels are designed to target. Things like managing big emotions, or entering into a group and making friends and supporting those friends, but also managing conflict when it arises in the classroom and school, having confidence and a sense of agency that supports those positive interactions with others, with other students, but also with adults, managing things that certainly come up like competition and absolutely peer pressure. All of that takes communication and having a strong sense of self, building those skills like being able to show and have respect for others. All of those are the kinds of social and emotional skills that the kernels are intended to target. And generally, the kernels are games, activities, they're strategies and tools that teachers use in the classroom with children. They can also be used because they're very simple in all kinds of other settings in the school. When things arise, kernels can be used to support children's skill development. They're designed intentionally to be fun, to be play-based, to be engaging, and very easy to use. I'm not done with that prior slide. Just a couple more things about the kernels. Each one targets a specific and distinct social and emotional skill and is intended to provide this kind of in-the-moment support. So something that's really valuable about the kernels is that they can be used in ways that sort of meet what's happening right there and offer some support to teachers and to students. Teachers can choose the kernels that work best for their students because they are the experts in that classroom, and those kernels that are really responsive to the setting and those particular needs that they're seeing. They can also be incorporated into academic lessons and other activities in the school. The idea here is that they can be really integrated to boost skills in the social and emotional domain, but also in other areas that children are learning in the school environment. So now we're ready for the next one. Thank you. So the EASL Lab has worked for many, many years, well over a decade, on SEL kernels and in many partnerships, both in the US and around the world. And over that time, we've been studying them and have learned a fair amount about them. In particular, that they help students, so our research tells us that they help students acquire those skills. And these are skills that have been linked in research to future skills. So those kinds of marketable skills that were mentioned in the chat and what sometimes people call life skills. In the short term, we know that kernels help children learn to get along well with others and manage conflicts that arise in ways that don't interrupt learning. They support children to acquire those really important self-regulation skills that help them focus their attention and pay attention and shift attention when they need to. They support children to manage to really know about their own emotional world and that of others, which is a key pathway to sort of managing emotions in school settings. They support children to remember and follow directions, which is closely tied to focusing and shifting attention. And then also, they support children to make friends and build solid, trusting relationships with adults. And all of this work rests on lots of evidence over many, many decades that show that children's social and emotional skills are tied to their academic success, but also to those life skills and their mental health and well-being in the long run. In particular, those marketable skills that were mentioned in the chat. I think I'm turning it over to my colleague, Hannah, who is going to give you a little more information about the specifics, like what does a kernel look like and how might we imagine one for the home environment. Over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Stephanie. So like Stephanie mentioned, kernels are designed to be used in the classroom. They're oftentimes used in the classroom, but they can also be used in other settings and contexts. So we've worked to adapt some of our classroom kernels to be used at home, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. So please feel free to scan the QR code. It should bring you to a PDF version of this kernel that's likely a little bit bigger and hopefully easier to read. And I'll just briefly walk you through this activity. So the purpose of this activity is really to build community, to appreciate one another. And every kernel has 3 steps. So we start off with a warm-up. So you'll see here, this comes in the form of a question that parents will pose to their child. And this question here says, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. Can you think of something special about someone in our family? What do you appreciate about them? You then give your child some time to think and you have a discussion about this. And this really gets kids thinking about, okay, what is the skill we're gonna be building during this activity? The next part of a kernel is kind of the meat of the activity. So the activity here is choosing a family member, so this is the family MVP, to be celebrated either for the day or for the week. This can look very, very different, but a key aspect of this kernel is that it's not based on behavior, right? So oftentimes we see children with, really great behavioral skills, getting lots of celebration, and we want the family MVP to just be chosen randomly so that everyone has a chance to be appreciated and celebrated at home. So once that person is chosen, everyone else goes around and shares meaningful compliments about that person in the family. And we also have some supports to help children think, like, what is a meaningful compliment that goes beyond something like, I like your hair, or you are nice. Once you go through that activity, and again, that can look really differently. So it could be done at the dinner table. It can be done, on the fridge where everyone writes, a compliment on a sticky note and puts it up there. But once you're done with that, you move to this final piece, which is called Talk Together. And this is where we're really asking you to revisit that skill with your child. So you'll see here, we pose 4 different questions labeled ask, discuss, encourage, and reflect. And we're really just asking you all to have another conversation about what is the skill that we're working on during this activity? Why is it important? Where else can I apply it throughout my life? And that's it. So it's pretty easy. On these cards, you'll also see this green box, and these include adaptation. So other ways to do the activity, ways to build this into a routine, and then some adaptations for kids of different ages, or some suggestions for, if you have a 4-year-old at home and a 9-year-old at home, what are some ways that you can scaffold to support kids who are at different developmental stages? And then on the next slide, I'm going to show you what this kernel looks like in the classroom. So in the classroom, this one is called the Cool Kid. And we chose to show you all this kernel for a few reasons. First, it's hugely, hugely popular. So you'll see this quote up in the right-hand corner of the slide. This comes directly from a Quincy Public Schools teacher who tried out this kernel with children in the classroom this year. We had a couple of teachers try some kernels out with kids, and they wrote, "The kids loved Cool Kid. My kids could always use a confidence boost, so celebrating what makes them special daily is important." And I think that really highlights kind of just the spirit of Cool Kid. And you'll also see some fun pictures of children using Cool Kid in the classroom and some compliments that they've written to one another. And so you'll see this is only the front side of the card. There is a back side as well that has a similar reflection section, but you'll see it looks very, very similar to the at-home kernel. So it starts off with this, say the big idea, where you're introducing the skill to children. Then you get into the meat of the activity. And again, this is really intended to be randomly chosen. This is not based on, good behavior or academic achievement. And we really see Cool Kid benefiting children who maybe don't get a ton of positive reinforcement at school typically. And then the last part that's not on the slide here is this section called Reflect Together, where again, we're posing questions to children, asking them to think about the skill that they practiced, think about other times throughout the day or their lives that they could apply this skill. And as you can see, the kernels are pretty simple and easy to do. They're designed to be done. Oftentimes they can be done in 5 to 10 minutes. And, you know, teachers can build them out so they're longer. They can integrate them within academics. We really encourage adaptations and creativity. And teachers are some of the most creative people out there. So we see lots of cool and exciting things happening. But this is just one example of what a kernel in the classroom looks like.
All right, so I will take it from here. So that is our description about the kernels. And now I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the study. So, because we want to be sure that all of the things, the great things that we're doing are actually really effective and that kids enjoy them, that teachers feel comfortable using them, we have to carefully evaluate the program. So we are going to be asking teachers, students, and parents or caregivers to complete very short surveys. Now, the children in grades 3 to 5 will be taking the surveys, and they take about 15 minutes to do them. They will be doing them twice a year, at the beginning of the year as a baseline, and then at the end of the year. Now, the children in the younger grades, say K to 2, will still benefit from the program, but they won't be completing the surveys. Okay, so, and the surveys will not include any kind of sensitive or distressing questions. They're mainly questions that are going to focus on students' experiences in the school. So, privacy and participation. So, we do value your privacy. That is paramount. So, all of the survey responses are anonymous. They are, we do not share any student names. We don't have the student names. All of this information is compiled by our evaluator. And so no personal information is collected. And that is all grouped together. And our evaluator feeds it back to us, basically. So it comes to us as a whole group by school. And so there's never information about any one person. And then finally, the survey participation is optional. So if you do not want your child to take the survey, you can let us know. Okay. And that is pretty much it. So so now we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, you can either come off, I think if you can come off the mic.
No,
If
no,
not,
actually, I'm so sorry. All the questions have to go through the chat.
we have to go through the chat. Okay.
Yeah.
So feel free to type your questions in the chat and we will try to get through those questions.
So the interpreters will also take questions and put the questions in the chat in English. So you can answer those questions as well if we have anybody that's, you know, speaks a different language. You know, I actually have a question. If it's
Yes.
okay. I just want, it's actually just like a little bit of a clarifying question.
Sure.
So the kernels, right? We're going to train the teachers, right, in every building in our elementary schools to deliver these social skill lessons, which are done in the classroom in a very natural way, right? As part of the school day. And so it'll be grades 1 through 5. Is that correct? Or is it K through 5?
K through 5.
K through 5. Okay. I know you had to do some adaptation for the lower grades, right? You're gonna modify the lessons a little bit. Okay.
Exactly.
And then the kids that would take the survey, you know, as the check-in as part of the study, that would be grades 3, 4, and 5.
Right. The children in grades 3 to 5 do the survey. So all of these students will benefit from the kernels, but only the students in grades 3 to 5 will take the surveys.
Okay, perfect. And the surveys really are just about kind of like how their day goes. Is that correct? Do you have an example of of a question, or will you have the survey questions available that we could maybe share with parents before we administer the survey?
Yes, those are still under development.
Okay,
We're going to share them with the district, absolutely.
okay.
And then you can distribute them as you wish.
So when we do an opt-out, if parents do not wish their child to participate with the survey, they'll have a sample of the survey so they can make their decision whether to opt out or not.
I think that would be up to you if you want to distribute those questions.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, we usually would, like when we do surveys so that parents know.
Mhm.
You know, I do think that this really is just to measure the social emotional learning is what you're doing, the purpose of the survey, right? To see the impact of the lessons. Is
Right.
that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really an important piece for us as a district to know, you know, like how this is gonna impact our students and our families. So really that's the purpose of, it's not information that's gonna go anywhere else.
No, it's really only about whether or not the kernels are generating improvement in children's skills. Like it's focused really on the kernels, not on anything else.
Perfect. Great. You have a
Right.
question in the chat, actually.
There's
Yeah.
one about the survey being online.
Yes, so it will be done. We will have a URL code and URL and also a QR code.
Okay.
We can determine, with each school how they want to use that. Those responses go directly to our external evaluator, who then keeps everything secure and will compile all of this, like I said, as a group. No individual information is compiled and then given back to the project, the program, for us to, to get the feedback about how this is working, and also just for our own quality control.
Mhm.
Great.
There's another question. It says, is there a process? This is from Kate. Is there a process for parents to get the home-based kernels?
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. I can take that one.
Sure.
Great question, Kate. So yeah, there will be a process. We will most likely send them out in a newsletter. So we'll send them out in physical form, but then we can also do something similar to what I did today, which is share a QR code. So you could also access those online if that's easier for you all. And we'll include a one-pager, introducing kernels, how to use them, other creative ideas. So for any parents or families who weren't able to make it today, they know, what is this big packet of things coming home? And again, by no means you have to use them. We would love if you do. Obviously, having children, practice these skills at home and at school is really, really important. But yeah, we'll be sharing all of the at-home kernels in one place in the fall.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. And then we have a question from Kelly who wants to know, what is the timeline for this study? So the project, the program is running for 3 years. It begins this coming fall, will run through 2028 for 3 school years. And we will be collecting information from the study for the duration of those 3 years.
Yeah, and I did want to point out that Jill Karanas, who's on this call, has been appointed as the acting director of student support services as of July 1. So she is going to be the partner with select schools and helping support, the implementation through next year and through the life of the study. So I'm really super excited that Jill is taking over this project as the QPS partner. You couldn't get a better person to do that, so we're thrilled to have her on board.
Well, congratulations, Jill. And we've had the great experience of being able to work with Jill for about, I think we've known you for about a year now because we first met last spring, right? And we've been working pretty closely with Maura and Jill for the since January, really. So that is great news. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mara.
And we have another question in the chat from Colleen, who says, "Hi, has this program been implemented yet in other school districts, or is Quincy the first? And how was Quincy chosen to take part in this program and study?"
So
Well, yes.
I mean, I can answer the first part of that question. As I mentioned, that we've been doing work on the kernels for about a decade and have adapted them and implemented them in partnership with districts in Connecticut, in Nebraska and California, and then in a bunch of places around the world, including parts of Canada, Brazil. We're currently doing a big project in Ukraine and other places. So there's versions of SEL kernels designed and adapted in partnerships like this one in both the US, but also in many places around the world.
And as far as select schools go, Quincy was chosen first. We had specific criteria that we were looking for. We really wanted to work in elementary schools, and we were looking at K-5 schools, and so not every district has that kind of configuration. And just really that we were looking for a district that would be excited about working on their social and emotional skill building in students. And so we were looking for that excitement in a district and some willingness to try some new things. And so Quincy is going to be doing this with us, and so will Randolph Public Schools.
And what's been great is the pilot has gone so well this year. So we did the pilot program, and the teachers that did the pilot program loved the curriculum and really appreciated the support. And I just love the fact that, you know, we get to celebrate our kids and acknowledge our kids, and we're going to be very intentional about it. It's going to be frequent, and you know, that's something that doesn't come, you know, totally naturally all the time, because you know, you've got a lot of things going on in the classroom. So anything that, you know, boosts that and supports that, it builds relationships. You know, we know that kids do better when they have a trusted adult that they have a positive relationship with. It's such a great protective factor. And the kernels model pro-social skills. Like, instead of telling kids not, you know, don't do this, don't do that. Instead, it's like, hey, let's kind of talk about it this way. Let's try it this way. You know, it's a positive, it's just really positive and affirming. It's really a gift to the district that we, you know, have this support and this resource. And so we're really, really grateful.
Well, we're so grateful to be partnering with you as well. And we have another question. This one is from Brian in the chat, and this will be a question for the ESOL team. Are all teachers implementing the same kernels? And is there a prescribed scope and number of kernels that every teacher will use? What if some teachers use more kernels than others?
So I'll just start by saying that all teachers have access to the same kernels. And one of the features of the kind of kernels concept is that teachers can make choices about what they will implement based on their specific classroom needs and what they're seeing from their students. But also, we provide lots of supports that teachers can rely on to sort of implement them in a certain way should they want to. So it's flexible in that teachers have some of this choice, which we've heard from teachers over the years is really important to them. And some teachers want some advice about, like, should I start here and what might I do next? And so both of those options work in this model. So we expect that some teachers will use different kernels. Some might choose a certain set and do those more frequently than other particular kernels. And we're going to be asking teachers what they're doing. So we have a sense of sort of the whole array of what's being implemented in the classroom and can describe and then describe what's happening, but also make mid-course corrections if teachers need support or need ideas about additional kernels to do in certain areas. So the model is really designed to be very flexible and responsive. Hannah, do you want to add anything?
No, that was perfect.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do we have any more questions?
I think Hannah's ready to answer that one.
I see one from Colleen. So Colleen said, will you be going into the schools to help support teachers implementing this? We will, yeah. So we will do an initial training with all teachers. So every teacher will get a training from the EASL lab. We'll talk about social and emotional learning and development generally. We'll work through the kernels. We do lots and lots of hands-on practice. We really want to get teachers comfortable using these. And then we'll continue to provide support throughout the year. So we'll provide booster trainings, and we're really available to support teachers in whatever they need. So like Stephanie said, if we need to create a one-pager to support teachers because they're struggling with this thing, we'll absolutely do that. We're ready and willing to respond to anything that comes up.
And
Yes.
I'll just jump in and say too, part of my role as an on-site coordinator is to be embedded within all of the elementary schools so that, part of my backstory and my history is I've been an adjustment counselor in schools. So I'm very aware of, the content and the inner workings of the school environment. And so I'll be there to really help troubleshoot or problem solve, communicate and collaborate with the teachers as well. Especially once they get their trainings from the EASL lab and they get their booster trainings. So we want to make sure that this can be rolled out as smoothly as possible and that teachers are given the support to, provide success for the students.
Thanks, Sarah. And so keep your eyes open for Sarah. You may see her when you're picking up your kids from school. Any more questions? Okay, we have a thank you from Kate. As a parent with an incoming kindergartner and a first grader next year, this makes me so happy to see a program like this. Well, we're so thrilled that you're excited about it because we're definitely excited as well.
So there'll be more information to follow, right? As in the fall, where we're going to get the principals on board. There'll be newsletters through the principals, and so we're going to keep everybody posted as we go. I think it's great that the parent resources will be made available, and such a great team, such great questions. I thank the caretakers and the parents for showing up tonight.
Absolutely.
But you can always reach out to me for a little bit, and then Jill Karanis too through Quincy Public Schools is available.
Yes.
So I think that probably does it unless there's anything else the team wants to add. Good.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you for having us tonight. It's just been a real pleasure to talk about select schools with the community in Quincy. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank the parents for all the great questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.